Welcome, everyone, to the Unbroken Veterans podcast. We are here with Pat McNamara, who has quite a long list of things that he does and is capable of that we like to learn from. Not the least of which is health and fitness, as well as shooting, and my favorite, basic dude stuff.
Woo!
So, Pat, how are
Yes,
you?
sir. Good. Great.
Let's
Great. Great to be here. Thanks.
funny story or crazy story, whichever you think is better.
I don't know. I guess I could combine them both. Let me see a funny story. This is one I don't tell often. So, when I first got to I'm telling a story while I was still active duty. When I first got to the unit, I was on a team that was filled with just a bunch of cyborgs. They were real badasses. We were on a steel range doing a little training, and what had happened, a lot of guys don't know that I'm a bird watcher. I've been a bird watcher since I was 10 years old, so uh it doesn't go over real well, a bunch of hard ass type A's. But people get used to it. But I was on the range with my team. We were shooting steel, and the steel and the shots were winging through the air, pew, pew, and it was attracting these flycatchers, these kingbirds. It's a type of eastern flycatcher, and one of them landed on a steel target. And I told the guys, I said, "Hey, ceasefire!" And they're looking at me like, "What's up?" I said, "There's a kingbird on the target down there," and they're looking at me like I've lost my freaking marbles. And I said, "Yeah, it's a type of eastern flycatcher." And I just shut up. I was like, "Oh man, I just made a huge blunder here by coming out of the closet as a birder." But the day went on, and I went home that night, and I opened my little kit bag, and there's a dead kingbird in my kit bag with a note attached to it. And the note says, "This is not an eastern flycatcher. This is a 45 caliber ACP catcher." Yes, the bird had a big hole. The big had a big 45 hole through it too. Yep.
Oh my
Oh
god.
yeah. That was like welcome to the unit type of vibe right there.
I like it. I like it. So if you want to go into a little bit about yourself and what you're currently doing now, so to give people an idea who aren't familiar with your work.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a retired military guy, 22 years special ops. My whole career was special ops. I retired in '05. Um, I worked for a corporation shortly, and then in 2010 under my own banner of T-Max Inc. ever since 2010. So that's training, marksmanship, adventure concepts, security. So I do a lot of shoot training, fight training, close quarter battle, those kind of things. And then I have several other projects. I run an online coaching squad. um, I do online uh, fitness training. I sell and market some of my own fitness equipment. Uh, I am a co-owner of Invader Coffee
All
recently.
right.
So, yep. Co-owner there. And I've got just projects out the yin yang. I have a lot of little stuff going on, between books, DVDs, small projects, online coaching stuff, and yeah, the list goes on. So it's been a good it's been a good ride so far.
Awesome. Awesome. Nick and I were kind of figuring out what all we wanted to cover, and we're definitely interested because at least I haven't heard it, is kind of how you went from civilian life getting into the military and then some of the decisions that went to that or maybe influences.
So you're talking about why I joined the military.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. So um I it stemmed from me discovering myself in like in a physical way, in like in sport. Because before I got into any kind of sports, I was a pretty quirky and mild, excuse me, a mild kid, I was very mild mannered, very just go lucky, happy, just picking flowers, riding unicycles, just playing violin, watching birds, all that stuff.
Basic dude stuff.
I started wrestling, and my first couple of years I sucked, but then I started winning, and I started working hard at winning more because I wanted that win, win. I loved being victorious because it was a foreign thing to me at the time, being a victor like that. And I got really good at that, and I knew that once I graduated high school, I wanted that same feeling, to be a part of a team, to be self-governed, to find real love in hard work. So yeah, I just basically went to all the recruiters. I had no preference. I didn't care. There was no bias. I had no idea what any of them had to offer. I just went to each one of them and said, hey, what's the hardest thing I could do in the Marine Corps, in the Air Force, in the Navy, in the Army? And the Army at the time had the best answer. Plus, they had the coolest posters at the time, too. So, and I said, man, I want to be like one of those guys. These guys are wearing berets, and they have ropes and camouflage and, a machine gun with bullets strapped, draped across their chest. Yeah, so that's how it started for me.
Awesome. So what, because you were in Delta, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So were you able to get a contract to go straight into it, or did you have to start out as a Green Beret? Or
yeah, you can't get a contract to go straight in there. It's a very mature man's, unit. I mean, the average age there, I think, is 33, something like that. So, but I did get a contract because at the time when I joined, it was 1983. They were running that 18 X-ray program, so Special Forces baby. So I was able to sign up for that.
Awesome. And then how long were you in Special Forces before you went to Delta?
Oh, let me see. Well, when did I go to unit? So from 84 to 92 is when I made selection.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So different special forces units before I went to the unit.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So a little bit more about your career, if you can speak to it. I don't know if you can, but obviously following you post some cool pictures. One of the most intriguing ones I thought were like you incognito in Berlin before the wall. Like, I guess I'm curious to know more about your experience there. I don't know what's been declassified or not. And again, that's something I haven't heard spoken of. Probably people aren't asking. So I thought I'd take the reins and ask about that.
Yeah, sure. So that was a unit called PSSE, and it stemmed from Detachment A, Det A in Berlin. I got recruited to go to that out of first group. I had no idea what it was about. None, zero. It was so vague. When the recruiter was talking to me, I just knew it was probably cooler than what I was doing at the time. So yeah, I went there. On the way, I had to go to DLI, Defense Language Institute, to go to language school for German. And yeah, real cool unit, kind of a stay behind force in case the balloon went up, and we're putting in a bunch of, networks and safe houses and routes and all this stuff, in the event that that shit hit the fan. Yeah, that was a fun job. That was a lot of fun. I had two jobs over there. I had that one, and then I had another one I got recruited to go to that was spying on the Soviet army in former Soviet East Germany. So that was another unit that I was in as well over there. So both really cool. I was very fortunate to have been a part of the Cold War battle, to be on the Cold War battlefield, so to speak. But yeah, really freaking neat. Very fortunate to have been a part of history too.
Yeah, that's one of the things that struck me when I saw one of your photos. I was just like, there's a lot of history books and a lot of TV clips on all that going on. So
yep.
Neat for sure.
So one of my favorite questions, I'm kind of excited to hear your answer on this, Pat, is what soft skills did you learn from the military that has helped you, or maybe that you still use today?
Well, I made a good living off of the shooting, right? So that's primary one. So that's a major one that I used in everyday life. The shooting stuff, the shooting skills, the gun skills.
Right.
But there's so many of them. I mean, if you look at just everyday day-to-day life, I've written a book called Sentinel, be the agent in charge of your own, how to be the agent in charge of your own executive protection detail. So all that stuff in that book I learned from my past experience in the military. So shooting, driving, the med, the how to stay fit, comms, all of that stuff is transferable. It was transferable for me to help me navigate the civilian world and pass on some of that good information, to just citizens.
I think a lot of that stuff gets overlooked because when I started concealed carrying 10 years ago or something, I started to realize that there was about a lot more than just carrying a gun. And I did martial arts earlier on years ago, a bunch, because I don't like to fight, but I also don't want to lose.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing with me carrying a gun. I don't have any interest in using it. There's so much that goes in if someone has to use it. And I know that psychologically, legally, I have no interest in using it, but I don't, want myself or especially someone in my family hurt. And so I think there's so much that goes around to like paying attention, walking through parking lots, all those things. And people just don't consider that. But then it's on the flip side is people also don't think about where you just said medical a moment ago and health and fitness. People overlook that stuff a lot too. Again, they just think it's just, I just carry a gun or I just do this one thing. It's like, it's very much about the whole aspect, which is why I like your basic dude stuff so much.
Yeah, right on.
You make a great point. Basically every video of like, hey, there's all these other things going on. I've actually, Nick and I did a ruck. We rucked a 5K.
Yep.
And we picked up some people's trash where they get the water cup and they just throw it.
Right.
We picked it up because there's one of the basic dude stuff
you
did where you talked about picking up after other people. And I was like, we can do that. We can make this a better place. So,
and that's what that's the intended messaging, of the BDS, of the basic dude stuff of the, where is it? Boom.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's amazing how I was able to build an international brand.
That's
an international brand just off of a whim, just it was the thing is thoughts are fleeting, so when you have a thought like that, when you have an epiphany, it's best to act on that stuff immediately. But that came about just with me BSing with my bride.
Yeah.
I was in white mode here in my house on my recliner, drinking bourbon, and we were just bullshitting about installing new appliances. And I told her, yeah, I can install all those. She goes, really? I said, yes, Rebecca, I can install all of these things, man. I know all the stuff. The stuff that dudes should know how to do. I mean, I don't know a lot of the advanced stuff, but I know all the basic stuff, the basic stuff that dude should be. And I kept saying it all and then pretty soon it just came out. I'm sitting there and I said, yep, the basic dude stuff. And I went, boom. I need to write that down.
Right.
And then I just started writing down examples. What are examples? So tying a double Windsor knot, putting on a lure the right way, selecting a lure for fishing, changing a tire, making dinner, cleaning up your house, just all that. It just went on and on and on and on. And the ideas are never ending. I mean, I've been doing that that was at the end of 2019, and I've been doing them every Wednesday since.
Holy cow.
Dang.
Yeah.
No wonder there's so many. It'd be like Seinfeld episodes. You just can't see them all.
Right. Yeah. Now, I have seen all Seinfeld episodes, and I can recite all of them.
I know I've seen them all, but I will see one on TV. I'm like, I don't remember seeing this, but
right. Yeah.
So my favorite question that we ask is, if you were to go back in time to the day you signed up for the military, what advice would you give yourself?
So I've been asked this before, and this is the big one, man. Never miss an opportunity to shut the fuck up. That's a big one, right? So,
Yeah.
listen more, talk less. That would have been massive for me. Now, the thing is, early in the military, you weren't saying anything; you were just getting yelled at. But later on, when I was got assigned to a unit and stuff like that, like when I went to first scoop, just a little bit more listening, and making sure that you're aligning yourself with the right people. Because back then, I didn't care with whom I was aligned, but you realize that becomes pretty freaking important, and it could be detrimental too if you're aligning yourself with the wrong people. Just keeping bad company, man. So there's a couple of them right there.
Yeah, I agree. It's very much about how you surround yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What do your friends talk about kind of determines what you're going to be focused on. So if I like, especially in the military, having friends that we push each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's important.
Yep.
That's a good one though.
And then, yeah, so, Sam kind of was just introducing me to you, and I was getting to know you more kind of through your Instagram. And then I decided to watch your Joe Rogan as well, just to kind of get an idea for today. And in that episode, you kind of had talked a little bit about like just some hard times you had gone through. I think it was closer to your transition. And so I just kind of wanted to pose the question of like, any of our listeners out there that are going through a similar time, do you have any advice for them, or just maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, like idle hands, devil's workshop, right? You got to stay busy.
Yeah.
You can't stay idle. So, and that was a massive contributor, because I was just in a kind of a dead end job, just doing the same thing every day, working for a corporation. Now, I was doing the training thing for them, but I wasn't real happy, working for somebody else, and I wasn't as busy as I should have been either. And I lost sense of purpose and meaning. I wasn't doing anything bigger than myself. And so that was huge right there. So because I went into deep, dark depression for years and didn't even really realize what was happening to me. I just know that I slowed way down, and all my enthusiasm and motivation was shot. And I was able to pull myself out of it. So that was a massive, but I think because it'll creep up on you, because guys need that, guys need purpose and meaning. They need to build something, and it doesn't need to be something tangible. It could be thoughts or a book or whatever it is, but you need to build. You need you need a project that is going to last a long time, that you look forward to tomorrow, and the next day you look forward to it tomorrow, and the next day you look forward to it tomorrow. And because that'll really keep you going, that purpose, that meaning, being kind of mission driven. Because if you don't have a mission, anymore, then it's a slippery slope, man. You could fall down that same rabbit hole I did. And it was a deep, dark hole, man. I almost capitulated to, that darkness, just accepting it. But thankfully, I was able to get myself out of it on my own. I just had an epiphany and acted on it once again.
Would you be willing to speak to what that epiphany was?
Yeah, I realized that I had to be around for my kids, right? So that was my mission. That was my purpose. And I didn't realize it until my kid was sitting with me. It was late at night, or it was, getting close to his bedtime. And I was 3 sheets already, because I've been drinking a lot, like an all day drinker, just to kind of squelch the pain. And we were chatting. It was like the planets aligned. It was a series of little events. I lived in the bonus room above my garage for almost 5 years, to kind of escape my shitty domestic life at the time. And my kids would come up there with me and just watch TV, little teeny TV. We'd watch Simpsons or whatever it was, and I had just a little glowing incandescent light. And my son and I were watching TV. He's a sweet little boy, and I have a window open. There's a window. It's a small window, because it's a bonus room above the garage. And I see movement, and I look, and a little screech owl landed right on the window. This is an open window, so he's basically in my house. He's right there on the windowsill. Little screech owl, and he's all lit up by this incandescent light. And I whispered to my kid, I go, James. He goes, yeah. I said, real slow, turn your head and look at the window. And he does it real slow. And he looks over, and I could see him go, because it's right there. It's only feet from us.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And he's just amazed. And it hung out, kept looking at us, looking back, looking at us, looking back. And then it flew away. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we're going, oh. And I'm looking at his big, soft brown eyes, and his little face. And I said, James, you know what? I don't just love you. I am in love with you. And he started crying. I mean, sweet, just tearing up, and I went, fuck, man, I am screwing up, bro. I am screwing up. I mean, these kids really freaking love and respect me. And I'm kind of absent, from them. Because of my condition, because I didn't want to transfer that energy onto them anymore, that negative energy. So I put him to bed, and I reflected, I got exercised a bunch of introspection at that moment. And I said, man, I got to get my shit together. I got to pull my head out of my ass. I got to put a rubber band around my neck and snap the fuck out of it. So I put out my running shoes, put out my iPod, put out some running gear, and I set an alarm for the next morning. It was just like a Sunday morning, and I got up at 6, and I just started running, kind of a la Forrest Gump, I just went for a run, and it was a long run, man. I mean, I ran for like an hour and a half.
Gosh.
And then I got back in my home and in the driveway. Now I'm starving too, but I said, screw this, man. And I worked out. I just did PT calisthenics for like another hour. And that reignited my flame, that was almost out. That just helped me remember who I was. And I wanted to be that person again. So that was the second time I had a second lease on life.
Mm-hmm.
That changed everything for me, just having that one really good kick-ass day. Because just like the victory, in wrestling, I wanted another one, and I wanted another one, and I wanted another one, because I hadn't had good days in a row, and so that was a massive turnaround for me, that one day. I wish I could remember the date, because I would celebrate it.
It's like another birthday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting to me too to think that like you're a bird dude,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like your reset. Almost
Right.
like poetic, like
Yep.
They're like, hey man.
Right. The bird was telling me, hey man, get the hell out, up and out. Yeah.
Yeah. Be free, spread your wings.
Yep.
Well, good deal. So kind of an interesting transition, seamless. You were talking about, your fitness, you were busting ass around this town, and then back at your driveway working out. So can you tell us more about combat strength training?
Yeah, sure. So I started the concept of it while I was still active duty. I mean, I can't put the right words together to describe the fitness level of the dudes in Delta. I cannot, just think cyborgs.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And I was always one of the fittest dudes, but there was always guys fitter, always, and these were all round fit dudes.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to learn more about fitness and how I could maximize, my time in the gym, because we did a lot of other stuff besides gym, O courses, swimming, running, rucking, climbing. It was a constant. You were constantly looking for new challenges. Excuse me. So I got the unit to buy off on me bringing in a strength coach, and this is late 90s, and guy brought in was University of Michigan strength coach, and he kind of revolutionized how we worked out. And I took a lot of his ideas and pushed them forward with me. They traveled with me. When I retired, I was working out in a CrossFit gym, and not to deliberately poo-poo CrossFit, but there's a lot of bad going on there. It's good for the fitness community because it encourages people, due to group dynamic, it encourages people to get fit. So, but I just saw the damage people were doing to their bodies by doing that, by doing CrossFit, the replication of movement, the herky jerky, the timed Olympic lifts. At any one time, at least 50% of the members had an ailment, something that was bothering them, a shoulder, a hip, a calf, whatever it was, at least 50%. And I was doing my own thing because I was studying up on different workout methods. And I took some of like Mike Gittleson, University of Michigan strength coach, and Mark Twite of Jim Jones. And then I got my National Academy of Sports Medicine, my NASM certification. And then I started writing articles based on what I was doing. And the articles I was writing for Recoil Magazine. So Recoil Magazine's a gun magazine, and they asked me if I would write articles for them. And I said, hell yeah, I'll write articles. I said, what about fitness articles? They said, well, we're a gun magazine. I go, well, you can't really have one with you're a gunfighter magazine. You can't have one without the other. In gunfighting, there's an element of kinetics. You've got to be fit. You've got to move your body over a portion of the earth from point A to point B expeditiously. You might have to manhandle people. You might have to get in and out of cars, dragging stuff. There's a lot going on there. And they were like, oh, good idea. So I wrote up articles based on the recipe that I was building at the time. And I was breaking down the work week into 5 different days. One was power day, then strength, speed and quickness, hypertrophy, and skills day. And man, it was overwhelming, the amount of feedback I got out of it, and from real credible people, out there in the fitness industry. One of them being Bert Soren from the company Sorenex. They make straight, and he was a world champion thrower. And he sent me an email, or I forget what it was, because I can't remember when I was writing these articles. Maybe I'm guessing 2014 is when it started, something like that. And I was like, holy shit, man, this is a real credible dude giving me kudos. This is somebody who's established in the fitness world.
Yeah. That's a good feeling right there.
Yeah. And then that affirmation kept going with other people, big names, the Cal Dietzes of the world and people like this. And so, I launched a website and an ebook and online programming. Now, I do credit a lot of that success to CrossFit, only because I was looking at what they were doing wrong and doing the opposite. So, and a couple of the big ones were, it was everything was sagittal, so they were living in a sagittalistic world. Everything was this way, and this way. So we don't function like that. Our primal being, we are load bearing and we are transverse plane of motion creatures. And that's what's most neglected, that rotational strength, that rotational power, the ability to throw, to tear, to climb, to drag, all that stuff. So I wanted heavy emphasis to be set on those kind of things, that the primal being. And more as it's evolving, I every year I'm getting more and more primal with it, getting rid of a bunch of, I have my gym is in my driveway, and it's very Spartan, but everything that I need, everything that anyone needs. And I'm getting rid of more and more weights, like free weights. I used to have a bunch of free weights in there, but more and more they're going away. because it's not necessary. But I could talk all day long about that program, man, about the CST program, the combat strength training program.
I don't want to duplicate what happens on other podcasts, but you have 4 reasons for being fit, and I think it's really important to get that information out. So if you'd like to,
and I thought about this, you know, I get a lot of just thinking, you know, about working out, fitness, and why, you know, what's our goal? Because people say, what are you training for? You know, what do you, that's a big question. It's like, dude, you're training so hard. What are you training for? And my answer would be life, you know, just life. And then I realized, well, I'm also training because of these things. So, and then I came up with 4, and if you stick with these 4 reasons, excuse me, you've got that purpose, that meaning, you know, you got focus. So what are you training for life? Well, what portions of it, what do you need to train for? And there's 4 reasons. And the first and foremost, self-preservation, longevity, right? Stronger, longer. We want to be fit for health. The second one, the ability to save your own life. I mean, people die because they can't pull themselves up, you know, off of a, you know, on a cliff's edge or whatever it is, you know, burning building. Number 3, and more importantly than saving your own life, the ability to save somebody else's life. What a bummer it would be if you couldn't save your kids' lives or your wife's life or whatever it is due to your lack of fitness level.
Yeah.
And then the last one, the ability to kick somebody's ass. You know, so there's 4 reasons right there. I mean, what else do you need? A lot of people, their focus is on cosmetics. Now, I'm not vain, but I'm not vain.
Yeah,
I like to look good too. You know, I want to look good, but it's a byproduct. It shouldn't be your focus. But I have been motivated by vanity in the past couple of years of recent, you know, because I have an age difference with my wife. And man, when I look in the mirror, I want to be able to go, oh, thank God, this looks good, you know. And I want her to say the same. When I'm naked, I want her to go, hell yeah, versus, well, there he is. There's my dude right there.
That's good. Getting back into the gym, I kind of go through these periods where it just kind of life happens and then I got to get remotivated. But I definitely notice the older my kids get, the fact that I can still pick them up above and my daughter's should be 6 in December and I can still lift her above my head.
Right.
And, you know, wrestle and do all the things. And so that was one of those that hit me a while back, was just making sure that I can run with them and that I can climb with them and you know, keep up with them basically.
Yep,
So I know there's one day I won't be able to, but I'd rather it be later than sooner.
Damn straight, man. I mean, if nothing else motivates you, I mean, your kids should, you know, your family should motivate you. So they motivate me, both my kids, my wife. I get motivated by them because I want to be around for them. I want to be their protector.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be that guy for as long as possible. I want to be the badass, man. I am, you know, the patriarch. You know, I want to be their bodyguard, man, for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I had some questions about far as like your take on fatherhood, maybe mistakes you made, things you think you did well that you can pass on, because I think another part of so much of this is a huge puzzle to us as far as helping other veterans. And, you know, you help them in one set of life, but you don't help them in another. And so we're going to try to start branching out and expanding what we're helping people with. And I think I can see where some people get stressed as fathers or mothers, especially with the military aspect to it. There's been changes I've had to make and be aware of. And luckily my wife is very in tune. And so, and she knows I take constructive criticism. And so she can approach me and say, hey, this or that. So what might you have as far as that information?
Well, when they're young, you know, when they're little kids, really take advantage of that time, man, because that's the best, you know, because they want to be in your shit, man. They want to be with you, you know, and allow that, because once they become teenagers, they don't want it as much anymore. You know, they lose interest. Like my kids right now, they're into doing stuff with me, but it's not like they're going to ask me. Daddy, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do this? Their attention seems like it fades a lot quicker now. We'll do something together and they're like, this is the coolest thing ever. And when it's done, they're just on their own. They're in the rooms, they're getting in the cars, they're gone. So really take advantage of those times when they're younger and do stuff with them. I drug my kids everywhere. And it was just me, not with their mom, mostly just me, because just real bad long-term relationship. It was very, very bad for a very, very long time. So my kids were my, focus. They were my kind of my vehicle of escapism. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to to be to have that readily available, that endless bounds of energy. And then one of the things I see parents now, and it disgusts me because I would consider it almost like child endangerment when kids have devices with them all the time, little kids, and parents are walking with kids to a restaurant and you could see that the dad has two kids and he's also got in his hand, he's got two tablets, so he could plop tablets on the freaking table while they eat dinner in a restaurant. I just think that's one of the most horrible things I've ever seen, and they're ubiquitous. Another thing, the helicopter parenting, man, you're going to turn your kids into just absolute pussies. I have a public pool in the neighborhood. I will not go to it because when I go, parents come there with their kids and they dress them in long sleeve shirts and they put sunscreen all over them. Dude, they're freaking kids. They need to be in the sun. If your kids don't have tans, something's freaking wrong with you as a parent, not wrong with them. My philosophy, when I would look at my kids and if they were, getting into whatever, let's call it creative mischief, I would say, well, is it going to hurt them? Is it going to hurt somebody else? Is it going to cost me money? If all three answers were no, I'm like, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Do that thing that you're going to do right there. And then my parenting style was all lead by example. Even now, my kids are Generation Zers, so they've always known electronics. It's always been a part of their life. But they never see me sitting on my ass idle. They always see me in motion. They always see me moving. They always see that, that I do stuff like I groom every day. I wear clean clothes. I have pride in my equipment. I take care of the lawn, and then I'm a good steward of the environment. I recycle, I pick up other people's trash. I'm a stickler on not, polluting and stuff like that. So, they see all that stuff and they see me helping other people and they know that I do podcasts to help other people or potentially help other people. So I need them to see that, that lead by example is massive. I don't do dictatorship style of parenting. I give a lot of slack and left and right limits are a mile wide. That being said, I don't worry about them at all. I've never had to worry about. I mean, they're 20 and 22. They're still living with me. They're going to community college. I never worry about them getting into trouble or staying out somewhere and getting drunk with a bunch of goofy young kids or crashing their cars because of negligence. So yeah, they're easy. They're extremely easy. They've always been too. Parenting is it's as hard as you want it to be.
Yeah.
As hard as you make it. Because I did single parenting for a long time too. And that was a cakewalk for me. Absolute cakewalk. It was fun. It was a pleasure. It's as hard as you want to make it.
I'm interested to ask a few gun questions as well.
Yep.
So one I wanted to ask about this interesting experience I had. And then I read an article about, so there's like the Black Hawk Down line. This is my safety, right? Everyone knows that. So I read an article that then reminded me of an experience I had in Canada with their military. And the article was saying that the line in the movie, while funny, was misconstrued from what really happened, and
Right.
that he actually was referring to keeping the weapon on fire because the hammer's down, and so it won't go into safe. And that's
Right.
because he can try to actuate the safety, and he knows if it won't go into fire, he knows without fooling with the gun that it is empty. And
Right.
the Canadians do that. And so I thought that was such an interesting thing, but then also made
Mhm.
sense to me that more elite forces like Delta are training other militaries. So
Right.
I thought it was interesting that the United States Army doesn't do it, but the Canadian Army does, because Delta probably taught them to do that.
Right.
So I was curious kind of the validation of that.
Well, there's a lot of different units to do that. So it's what it is you clear the rifle, you drop the hammer, and now you can't put it on fire, on safe.
Yeah.
And then you just lock the mag without loading it. So it's locked but not loaded.
Yep.
There's other federal law enforcement units that I have trained with who run that way. I'm not a big fan of doing that, to be truthful. And a big reason is just because of it can confuse somebody else. They might see it from afar and go, look at that freaking rookie. It's just perception is reality. You know what I mean?
It is.
I am not a fan of that. Because I'm a big fan of actuating that safety.
Yeah.
And I've had people, argue with me about that. Well, it doesn't have to be unsafe all the time. It doesn't have to be unsafe when you do a mag change, and they say, well, you can't put your Glock on safe, when you do a mag change. I see your Glock, when not in use, doesn't hang freely on your body by a sling.
Yeah.
Dangle.
True. Goes
dumbass. Yeah.
I did just remember before going to more gun stuff. So I've read The Mission of the Men in Me, and I've heard you speak about, we were kind of getting excited about this, the Bob Marshall Wilderness, but also some of those other experiences in there I thought were really neat. So I wasn't sure how much of your career has lined up with his. Give me more insight on some of the things, but also kind of hear more about the importance of going out to a location like Bob Marshall Wilderness, or one that someone can handle, because I know not everyone can do the Bob, but getting that time to be in nature and relax, reset, relearn some of those orienteering skills and things like that. So when did you start doing it? When obviously you got out of the Army, but what kind of made you go, hey, I still need to do this? Or were you already kind of doing it for your own purposes?
I was doing it on my own already, but nothing grandiose like that. Nothing, but I was still staying active in a lot of, like high alpine type of hikes, but nothing like traversing a national wilderness area. When I first became team leader in the unit, I brought it up to my team. I said, hey man, how about if we do, go to a wilderness area and do a long range movement, just a long range orienteering movement with emphasis on privation. So try to live off the land as much as possible, and, hunt it, kill it, eat it, fish for it, this and that. And they were down. So I drew up the proposals and brought it up to the unit, and they said, hell yeah, man. So the first one I did was the Wind River, the Bridger Tetons in Wyoming. And we walked from a town called Pinedale to a town called Du Bois. So the people listening who know what that is, they're going, holy crap, because that's a lot of terrain, it's a lot of altitude, and it's very rugged. And then when I finished that, Pete Blaber became the commander of my squadron. And he said, hey, that trip that you did, can you plan another one? I said, sure. So he just gave me that right there, and then I started doing research, and I found the Bob Marshall. So I got the green light and flew up there just to do a pre-deployment site survey. And I kind of circumnavigated it, drove, and the biggest thing I did was went out and talked to our grizz hunters, to either confirm or dispel myths about grizz and what about, personal protection, because that area boasts the highest concentration of grizzlies in the lower 48. So I planned a route, got all the maps, and then briefed it up to the squadron. So I took Pete on those, Pete Blaber. I took him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first one was a real good eye opener. I mean, we crushed it. We checked in with the Forest Service, and the Forest Service said, "You're going where?" Well, that's impossible. Every time I went up there, I would check in with the Forest Service, and every time they would say, "Well, that's impossible." But just because of the distance, the terrain, the altitude, and lack of trailheads and stuff. I mean, you have to nav this stuff, and that's naving for a long way. So yeah, I did 2 more in the Bob while I was active, and then I did 1 more in the Frank Church Wilderness in Idaho, where we walked from a town called Salmon to a town called McCall. That one sucked on a very, very great level because of the terrain, the distance, all that stuff, and the lack of water sources.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be probably the biggest challenge.
That was a massive one there. And then when I retired, I've been going to the Bob ever since. I still do them every year.
Yeah. Do you ever go somewhere else and still do the Bob that year, or is there sometimes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
Just to like national parks and stuff like that, or national forests.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. And that's where, if people aren't experiencing that, they need to stick with the national parks or national forests.
Right.
Not a wilderness area. Yeah. Yeah, that's because, man, there's nothing in those things,
No.
There's no signs and markers and,
Well, it's got to be weird. It's got to be weird when you come across someone.
Yeah. The first one I did, it was almost 90 miles. We did almost 7 days. And on the 6th day was the first time we saw someone. And it was a forest ranger coming in for the season. So he was horseback, and he had his mule train with him with supplies. So he could go to an outpost and stay there for the season, which I thought, what a freaking cool job that would be.
Yeah.
And we came upon him, and he started questioning, "You guys fishing? You have fishing licenses?" "Yes, we do." He says, "Oh, this is great. You guys are my first entry." And he pulled out a little notebook, "My first entry for the season." And he says, "Where are you guys coming from?" And I said, "Nimrod." He goes, and he's thinking, he goes, "Well, I know where that is. How did you get here?" And I said, "Well, we followed middle fork of the Flathead River to the Pentagon Creek to the Dolly Varden, went up over the Dolly Varden, down to Spotted Bear, to up over Spotted Bear Pass, the Sun River to here." And he's looking at us. He's kind of on the saddle, he's leaned over on a saddle.
Yeah.
Looking at all of us. There were 6 of us there. And he goes, "I've been working up here for 14 years. I've never heard of anybody doing that." That really motivated my guys. And I was like, "See, I told you, man, nobody does this shit." Nobody does it. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That is awesome. How many people tend to go with you on a trip like that?
Anymore, about anywhere from just 1 other person to 6.
Gotcha.
This past year, it was 6.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good deal.
Lead them. I kind of lead them, and I teach little, field craft stuff along the way, or whenever we hit a base camp, teach them traps and snares and primitive fire and how to fly fish, the best way to cook a trout, on and on.
That's cool.
Yeah. Where do I sign up?
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of people ask that. I get notes all the time because I mentioned it on Joe Rogan, and I mentioned that I take people. So I get asked all the time, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I take people that I at least have, like, they've been to a 2-day course of mine.
Yeah.
they're not a stranger to me. You know, I know that they're
Right.
not going to drive me absolutely batshit freaking crazy. in the
Oh, no
woods.
kidding. Yeah. Joe Rogan might have been the worst place to tell people that you take
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah. Yep. Has a
That's
big
a lot of
audience
people.
there.
I
Yeah.
remember you talking about that bear you saw, and you said you had like a gun and bear mace, and you didn't go for any of them.
Yeah, I
You're
didn't go
just
for either
like-
one. Yeah. I was like, "Where's my camera?"
Yeah.
The first thing that came to mind was just wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I was vociferous about it, you know, because it was close. It was 15 yards.
That's
And
so
this
close.
is a big freaking dude, man. Stood up and he boogied.
Man.
And I was like, holy crap. That's a lot of animals.
Getting back to guns. So what did kind of your research tell you about a bear caliber, or, you know, what handgun you would take ideally, or rifle, or, you know, revolver? Where'd that kind of, what was the answer you got?
The answer I got was, how well can you shoot? Can you shoot under pressure? Can you fire multiples accurately under pressure? You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Because the bear hunters were like, nah, it's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. You know, when it comes to caliber, the caliber debate isn't just with us humans; it's everywhere. You know, the caliber debate. But we still mix it up. Whenever I go, and let's say there's 4 of us, you know, somebody will bring a big wheel gun. I bring an auto with like 40, and then maybe a shorty shotgun with slugs, that kind of thing. You know, so we're covering the full gambit. But yeah, I know I could dump full mag into the brain stem of a big animal very accurately and very quickly. So I'm not worrying about that.
Any consideration on 10 mil, or is that even in discussion? Or with what you're saying, you're with your capability, it's not necessary.
I'm not a fan of 10 mil, only because it's not readily available. You know, a lot of people don't carry 10 mil.
Yeah.
And so for battlefield recovery purposes, where do I get 10 mil? I don't know anybody right now. It used to be a popular thing, right? There was a flavor of the day a few years back, like a decade ago. I think it was like big flavor of the day, 10 mil. But
well, it's what's more I've found, because I have a Glock 40 that I got we used to go to Colorado once a year, so I at least have something on me. And but what I found is, not only is it hard to find 10 millimeter, but to find actual true 10 millimeter. Otherwise, you're just carrying a 40. So why have an enormous hand cannon Glock 40 when I could just have a Glock 22
right
that does the same? So it is tricky to find hot ammo that's Sammy spec. And so yeah, I'm totally with you on that. It makes sense. So I guess another question would be, like, as far as pistol, when you talk concealed carry, you often don't have a light on there. Of course, you have a handheld light,
right?
But you know, I know that's another one of those things where some people say you should have a light, some people say it depends, some say, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very personal preference, right?
Yeah.
I would never. I think it's cool to have a light on pistol. For me, it's just a matter of, you know, it's like size. What can I conceal? And I know that I'm going to carry a light. This is, I am not adverse, or nor do I object to carrying a light on your concealed. Matter of fact, I think it's a good idea. What I do object to is the when guys say I don't need to carry a handheld light because I have one on my gun.
Oh yeah,
that's flawed thinking, bro. It's flawed thinking.
Yeah,
how are you going to help somebody out who needs a light? You're going to pull out your freaking gun?
Yeah, exactly.
Dumbest thing ever. You know, and the thing is, a light is, when people ask me about EDC, hey, what should I carry EDC? The first thing I say is a light.
Yeah.
First thing. That's your number one. And they go, no, I'm talking gun. I go, light. That's it. And if you can't shoot, light. And light only. Yeah, you need a light and a pocket knife. You know, that's your EDC.
Yeah. And they don't have to be big, is what some people.
No. You don't need all the lumens, you know?
No.
Yeah. Most people are like, I need all the lumens, man. You know, a couple hundred lumens, you're good to go, bro.
Yeah. I mean,
a couple thousand.
I don't think mine even has that. I have the tiny little stream light that you have to recharge, which I don't like recharging. But it was funny because I didn't carry, you know, as a kid, I carried a pocket knife everywhere. But, you know, since being an adult, I just haven't for years. And so when I finally started carrying a little flashlight, a little knife again, I like the Kershaw because it has a lock on it. And so, like, where I got kids, you know, if it fell out of my pocket or something, you know, they can't open it, basically. So I tested it on my wife. She took her a minute to figure it out. But anyway, with the light, it's one of those things where you don't realize how often you would use it practically
Yep.
until you have it. And then, because some people would say, like, well, what does everyone say? There's a light on your phone. And I'm like, but
Right.
first of all, it's not very bright. Second of all, it takes a long time to get to, and I have to fumble with it. If I just need something quick right away, I pull the flashlight out of my pocket. And I said, finally, for me, and I think a lot of people don't think like me in this way, but my phone is for communication, especially in an emergency. That's why I have it.
Yep.
So all the other things a phone can do is last, and then also if I can have a light and therefore conserve battery power on my phone, and I have a flashlight that can do a better job, then I'm preserving battery on my phone. I get then when I say that, some people kind of understand where I'm coming from then by carrying a little light. And I'm like, also like, what's this costing me? This no weight, it's tiny. So
right.
So big aim point guy. I know that, which I am too. I like aim point a lot. Far as are you enticed at all by people getting on this train of raising the optic as high as they can go? So like having the T2 with the Unity mount really tall, or are you just kind of like, I'm going to stick with what I've been doing for years?
Yeah, and once again, that's a personal preference, right? So
Yep.
It's very, very personal, and people get emotional about stuff like that. But yeah, I'm a 1/3 co-witness guy. I mean, I like to see my irons through my optic. I'd like to see them there, and then I get a better cheek stock. Well, it's very, very personal.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are full co-witness. Some guys are higher rise. As long as it works for you, who gives a freaking crap,
Yeah.
man?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then probably the last question I have for you as far as the gun stuff is, it doesn't look like you're one of the people I see that doesn't use a suppressor very often or at all. And so I was curious if that's, I guess I don't know the North Carolina laws, but also maybe it's just a preference. Maybe you don't deem it necessary. And I know that's kind of like these other questions, also a personal one, but I was curious your thoughts on that.
Number, I am not, I love suppressors. I think they're freaking great. But number one, there's a little bit of a zero difference, right? When you put a suppressor on, take it off. Now, not as much nowadays, right? Because they've really figured it out. Early days of suppressors, it was like a 6-inch drop at 50. It was ridiculous. It was stupid. Yeah, it was stupid, ridiculous. And then people ask me, hey, should I have a suppressor on my home defense gun? That's a big one right there. And my answer is absolutely freaking not, man. If shit hits the fan and I'm freaking shooting, I want people to hear that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Number one, I want to scare the death out of this dude, and I want my neighbors to freaking either come to aid or say, hey, this shit is going down at Pat Mag's house. We got to call somebody up. I want everybody to hear that stuff,
Yeah.
Because I don't need to be surreptitious about it at that point.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I don't want anybody here. I want to kill that mofo and then stash the body somewhere without anybody knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you, bro. Right on. Yeah, I'm not gonna freaking bury a body in my backyard or put it in the trunk of my car. Yeah.
No thanks. So what were if you had another few minutes, I'd be curious, what were some of the service weapons you saw come through? Because I've heard you speak on the 416 when it came out, and you were like, give me my M4 back. Like, this is solving problems that weren't problems. So curious about like just some of the gear, especially weaponry or even suppressors that you used, because you got out in 05, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. And you started in, well, it was 84.
Yes, 83. Okay. Yep.
So you probably saw like the car and some of those. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I got to see the evolution too of like M16, A1, A2. The A2 is like, it's an A2. Oh my God. What the hell? This is gonna be a great thing. Because we got the different ammo then and all that. And then when I got to the unit, we were using MP5A3s, and then slowly got into the M4. And I saw the full evolution of all the optics too. That like the Gen 1 aim point 3000, 5000s, and then those were high mounted for us because we still had the carrying handle on the M4s. They weren't flat yet. And we even there's some interesting little sidebars that people don't know about, like for instance, optics on pistol. We were testing optics on pistol in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
They were called the Seymour sights. And the benefit there, it wasn't for range use, it was for surreptitious operations, so under nods, with a pistol and the dot barely on. Now you could see everything, and your light is of course IR.
Yeah.
So you're lighting up the rooms and you could see the freaking sight, and it was badass. It was like, this is a massive battlefield multiplier, because we were using the PVS 9s at the time, the dualies. So we had all the gear. And as a matter of fact, the unit was brilliant in that if somebody had gear to field, if they wanted the stamp of approval, the stamp of endorsement, they brought it to the unit. Guys would bring it to the unit. We would test it. We would vet it. So, all the other military units, all the LEO units, the gear that they're using was probably vetted. If it's a good piece of gear, it was probably pushed through us at one point in time.
That makes sense.
And then, like you said, so it was M4, and then aim point, and then it went to EOTech. But we were constantly testing new sites, constantly. And then, like you said, once the GWAT kicked off, everybody was going to 416. So I grabbed one of those, and I trained with it for 3 days, and I brought it back and I turned it in. And the guys are like, why you want your M4 back? I said, well, there's no advantage to me carrying this whatsoever.
And more weight.
Yeah. It's easier to clean? Okay. It's not more accurate. I didn't like the feel of the piston. I could feel it.
Yeah.
I could feel it. I didn't like the feel of it. So it wasn't more accurate. It wasn't any more. I've never had a problem with an M4. People say, well, it's more reliable. Yeah, but let me have problems with my M4. So that was a standard problem to a solution, or a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And the Army's notorious for that stuff, or gun industry is notorious for that too. The gun industry. Let me make here's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, and people will buy it up, So and plus 416 was heavier as well. I don't want to be heavier, man. I want to be a freaking greased ape, bro.
Yeah.
I want to be fast. I want to be agile, mobile, mobility, survivability. I want to be able to boogie woogie.
Yeah. Especially as I've gotten older, got aches and pains after 12 years in the Army, and I'm like, yeah, I want to reduce some weight. What can I get rid of? What can I throw out? What do I not even need? I never use this. Yeah. As far as pistol, did you guys ever have the M9? Were you one that ended up with something like a Roland Special?
No, so we never had at the unit, never had the M9.
Okay.
As soon as you had two custom made 1911s, and whatever the frame is immaterial, whether it's a Springfield or Caspian, what have you, but single stack 1911 custom built, and those things shot like a freaking house on fire, man. They shot well, they shot very accurately, and you could beat the freaking piss out of those things, man. They were very well running guns. After the GWAT kicked off, the transition started slowly going toward like Glock 19. And then it went to Glock 7. 22. Yeah. And then back to 17. Yeah. So I saw that full transition as well.
What did you think of the Glocks versus 19? Like, and I'm not saying this from a like, which one do you think is better, or because they're such different guns.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I understand the logistics behind it. To logistically, the 1911 it's very tough to keep up with. Because to be analogous, that custom built 1911 is like a Rolex, where your Glock 17 is like a G-Shock watch.
Yeah,
that G-Shock's gonna work. It's gonna, you don't have to maintain it as much. The Rolex, you want to take it into the jeweler and get it cleaned and get it serviced and this and that. So logistically, there's a lot to consider with every operator having two custom built 1911. It's not about the money, but I understand the time, the logistics, the training behind it. So I didn't care 1 iota. I mean, I don't care what kind of pistol it is or rifle, really, so long as it's a battlefield multiplier.
Yeah.
If it's an impedance at all, or if it slows me down, then screw that, man.
So I guess I did think of one more question. So, talking guns, cool stuff, preferences, internet rivalries, all that kind of stuff. Do you look more? It looks like you, and this is kind of where I'm at with my shooting as well. Kind of going with a rifle, just having a longer barrel, having a 16-inch or 14.5, or there was the excitement around the Mark 18 10.3-inch barrel for a while. But it looks like just kind of for practical shooting, for realistic stuff, having the longer barrel. Can you speak to that as well?
Well, I mean, I like my equipment to be multifaceted. I want to be able to reach out, distance. I want that length of that barrel. I want accuracy at 300 yards, and beyond, because that little round is very accurate out to 500. So why reduce that accuracy? Why reduce that muzzle velocity and stuff like that? So, what's weird with the gun questions, a lot of people don't know this, and they're kind of mind blown. I'm not a gun geek. I'm not a gun nerd.
That doesn't blow my mind. I could kind of see that, because you're very practical with what you shoot and what you use. Kind of like an aim point. I like the red dot. It's simple. Goes on there. You're a pro staffer for them. Like it just makes sense. So it yeah.
I mean, because a lot of guys I know about guns. I know, but compared to the gun nerd who comes to my courses, with all the nomenclature, and they'll ask gun questions. So anymore, I tell them up front. I'm like, hey man, there's a knowledge base here. When it comes to gun geek questions, I might not be the one to ask, but then again, I know things that you should know. About external ballistics and the choice of ammo, and the things you should know about the twist ratios and what kind of freaking, metal it is and all this. I don't freaking know nothing, bro. And then, what about this brand of trigger, this brand of trigger, this brand of trigger? I know like 2 triggers. I don't know. I don't have the inventory, list of all the triggers made for every Glock and every 1911. I don't freaking know that crap.
I'm all stock. I don't.
Yeah. I like to modify a little bit, things. I like to tweak them. But yeah, man, I just don't know a lot of that stuff.
Well, I think it speaks to the practicality of your knowledge. And I think that's another thing. Can we talk this episode about stuff people miss, especially with concealed carry? But it's like they kind of miss. You look. Can you see the forest through the trees? Like, are you paying attention to what you really should, like you were saying, which ammo to buy, versus, if this trigger is just a hair lighter than another one. So I think, and I think that's what a lot interests me.
Train.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your trigger won't make you better, but trigger time will.
Yep.
So I think that's all I've got. Nick, do you have anything else, man?
No, that was it. It's been an honor to have you on.
Yeah, absolute honor.
Right on. Same here.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a good
Absolutely,
one.
guys. Thanks for having me on, and I hope this helps somebody out.
I hope so too.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Cool. Boom.
We thank you for listening, and we hope you got something helpful out of this.
Right now, the best way to support us is to simply spread the word. If you know a fellow veteran who could use some resources to elevate their life, send them our way.
Until next time, remember to check your 0s, 5s, 10s, and 25s.